Why Terrence Howard is no Einstein. Now, even if you're an idiot, or young, or both, it seems like only young people, like all the young people are idiots these days. But you probably heard of Albert Einstein, right? So he made it possible for satellites, he made it possible for television, he made like everything possible that we have. The fact that you've got a cell phone, he made that possible, right? He's responsible for like everything that we have. Terrence Howard, on the other hand, was an actor who was in Iron Man 1. He played Rhodey, but then he wanted a higher salary for Iron Man 2, and they said, go fuck yourself. And so he got upset, and I guess he never recovered. So Terrence Howard, he appeared on the Joe Rogan, I always think Joe Rogan show, and he explained that he has a revolutionary new idea, math theory. He's got all these mathematical and scientific theories that are going to revolutionize everything. And the main one was that 1 times 1 equals 2, according to him. Now, his main logic was, I think, that, like, how can you have one apple and then another apple and have it only be one apple? And I guess, like, it's kind of convincing if you don't really think it through. But then it was debunked pretty clearly by one mathematician or scientist, where they said, basically, you can't say 1 apple times 1 apple equals 1 apple, or, because essentially, no, the way math works is it's 1 apple times 1, right? You got 1 apple, you're not multiplying it by 1 apple. That doesn't make any sense. That's not math. You might as well be saying 1 apple times 5 bananas. So what this moron didn't even bother thinking through is the fact that it's not 1 apple times 1 apple. It's 1 apple times 1. But according to himself, Terrence Howard, he has debunked all of mathematics by proving that 1 times 1 equals 2. Which means that all math is that we've been using for all these years is bogus, and it doesn't work. Yet for some reason I'm able to make a YouTube video according to that math right now, and for some reason I'm able to have a cell phone, which is all of this stuff is based on that math that he says is bogus. I'm sure you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Well, I mean, like, this is just becoming more prevalent, and Terrence Howard is emblematic of this pervading idea now that, like, a scientist who spent his whole life studying a very specific type of virus is full of shit, and they're only doing it for money. Whereas you studied it for 30 minutes on the internet, so you know more about viruses than this lifetime virologist. I always liken it to, like, a guy that's got a yellow belt in karate, and they go to the dinner table or to the bar, and they start lecturing everybody on karate until a black belt comes in, and then the guy with the yellow belt's like, oh, I gotta go now. It's easy to lecture people when they don't know anything compared to your little yellow belt. Like, I play chess, right? And I'm like 1600 rated. So I could lecture and I could act like a smart ass about chess if I was in a room with non-chess players. But if I'm actually going to try to use that to, like, prove that I'm like a chess master, that would be really silly, because I'm a joke compared to, like, grandmasters. So Terrence Howard is explaining basically to people who never watched Sesame Street and never learned numbers. He's explaining that 1 times 1 equals 2. And I mean, in a way, you gotta kind of admire the arrogance to think that you alone have solved, you've noticed a problem in mathematics that no human being has ever noticed. You figured it out. But I would maintain, and I always have maintained, that genius is a combination of arrogance and humility, right? Like, in order to be the best chess player or to be Albert Einstein, you have to be arrogant enough to think that you can do it, and that's a lot of arrogance. But you also have to be humble enough to be able to notice when you're making mistakes. So that's why genius is rare. Terrence Howard only has arrogance. He doesn't have any humility. He just says one apple and another apple means two apples. And I'm not going to think any more hard. And I'm not going to, consider that I might be wrong, because how could I be wrong, right? It's not my fault that I lost the Iron Man movie, and that kind of put my career into a tailspin. Yeah, like, it's not my fault that I'm not in the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. I could have been if I wasn't, asking for a higher pay. No, I did that on purpose because I was working on deeper, more important things, like 1 × 1 = 2. And honestly, Google it, because it's hilarious. It's really funny. I mean, Terrence Howard truly believes he's a better scientist than Albert Einstein. Okay, so here's a quote by Terrence Howard. "The universe uses geometry, not arithmetic. Math is flawed because it assumes 1 × 1 is 1, but in reality it's 2, because you're combining one thing with another thing." And it's called addition. It's not called combining. Like, it's amazing. Like, honestly, if you want some entertainment, listening to Terrence Howard talk, he talks about how, like, I think he says things like protons are either female or male. They have genders. And then he put out a patent on his idea, and he said that it must be true because I have a patent. And somebody had to explain to him that just because you can get a patent on anything, that doesn't make it true. It's also funny if you really should watch Terrence Howard videos, because, like, he uses big words, so it makes him sound smart. So it'll be like, oh, the cohesiveness of the neutrality, of the ambiguity, and the inversions. And he just throws these words in. And it's like, okay, so because you use multi-syllabic words, that means you must be making sense, right? So is Terrence Howard nuts? Yes, he is. He doesn't even understand how, like, peer review boards work. Like, the fact that Albert Einstein's theory, E = mc², that has to go. Like, the whole scientific method is that you propose your theory, and then it is relentlessly scrutinized by every scientist on the planet, and they are going to try to poke holes in it. They are going to prove you are wrong, unless you're right. Now, the sad part is there are people who think that he's onto something. I was introduced by this whole thing by a neighbor who told me, wow, no, you got to watch this video. Terrence Howard explains that 1 × 1 = 2. And I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. I watched the video, and then I texted him, and I go, this is complete bullshit. But that neighbor of mine also believes that the world is flat, so no, Terrence Howard will never be Einstein, not in this dimension, not in another one, not in whatever teleology-based simulation he believes he's operating from. Einstein didn't care if he was worshipped. Howard cares that he is worshipped. And that, friends, is the difference between a genius and a man trying to reinvent math because he lost a fight with a calculator. But, aside from his 1 × 1 = 2 idea, I find it far more interesting that he said that he doesn't like to sleep with women unless they use baby wipes when they go to the bathroom. He has a history, I think, of beating women. And he lost, I really think this is a key thing. I think the fact that he lost the role of Brody in Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think that was just too much for him, and it broke his brain. And, like, a lot of things break your brain. When I suffer a terrible loss, it breaks my brain. That's normal. But you just gotta suffer through it. You can't just rebel against your brain being broken, your brain being broken. You can't just rebel against it and say, well, then I discovered a new color. Did you know that there's actually another color between, like, fuck. I mean, what must it do to you, to your brain, where you have to like then say, there's actually you know there's reptilian humanoid animals living underneath the surface of the earth, and they're colonizing, and they're trying to, or the sun. 33% of Americans think the sun revolves around the earth. I'll always remember what George Carlin said. He said, think of the stupidest person you've ever met, and that's the average American. I'm 47, I live in Toronto, and I thought I'd met the dumbest people ever, but no. And hence another expression, which I very much like. One difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has limits.